1834. America's frontier creaked and expanded. New roads, new towns, a faith in reason that spread like light. Yet in one Kentucky hollow, under the same sky that promised progress, a question arrived that reason could not settle. Two girls were born there on the same night, and what followed would make physicians frown, priests pray, and a town divide itself over what to call the impossible. Pine Hollow was a place that measured days by the mills, wheel and storms by whether the corn survived. Neighbors kept to their porches and children ran barefoot to the creek. The twins arrived into this quiet, two daughters of the Cain family, Delia and Marnie, so alike that neighbors joked they could trade places and no one would notice. But likeness is not identity, and likeness hides difference. From the start, small things diverged. One twin refused milk when the other drank freely. One awoke laughing, the other woke with a stubborn fever. Animals preferred one child's lap and fled the other. The midwife chalked it to infancy. The next season turned the joke into concern when a neighbor's sheep healed after lying near Delia but succumbed again near Marnie. When the twins were 9, something happened that pulled Pine Hollow from rumor into alarm. A local boy fell from a hayloft and broke his arm. The healer could not set bone well enough, and the town physician expected a slow recovery. The next morning, the boy's arm was straight, warmth in his fingers, and in the same hour, Delia collapsed with a fainting fit that left her pale and exhausted. Witnesses began to knit two events together. Over months, the pattern repeated in small ways. An elderly neighbor's eczema faded after Delia's hand passed over it. Marnie would lie awake when a neighbor's well went dry, and then the next dawn, the pump would flow again. No scientific instrument in Pine Hollow could record these shifts. Yet the ledger of town memories grew fuller. Cures, relapsing illnesses, synchronies between the twins and the world around them. Fear travels along the same roads as gratitude. For every person who swore the twins had done a kindness, there was another who muttered about unnatural bargains. The pastor at the stone chapel preached caution. God's work often wears a plain face. Devilry hides in invention. Others urged care and offered food. Pine Hollow split into households that welcomed the twins and those who left windows shuttered. Word reached the county seat. Dr. Elias Morton, a physician trained in the city, traveled the dirt roads to see these claims. He arrived with scales, simple thermometers, charts, and the conviction that careful measurement would clear the fog. He observed. He weighed. He prodded. On one afternoon, he recorded what he called an anomaly. A local wound mended overnight after contact with Delia, without salve or stitch, while Delia's pulses slowed and her cheeks hollowed. The reports returned to the academy in the city like a question mark on paper. Instruments noted no chemical agents, no fumes, no applied compress that would explain rapid healing. The physician wrote, "Visible restoration with no measurable intervention." He added a caveat. Observation conditions were local and imperfect, but his note convinced a small circle of learned men to come and watch. Under pressure to perform for men in stiff collars, the twins consented to trials. They sat across from scholars and came into contact with wounds and ailments set before them. The wounds sometimes moved toward closing, sometimes nothing happened. What unsettled observers most was the cost, the energy, seemed to drain one twin while the other appeared unchanged, or both grew faint after repeated trials. The lettered man argued ethics. Villagers whispered of sacrifice. The county paper ran a mild headline, and with it came demands. Families wanted cures for jobs, debts, despair. Local powerful men imagined advantage. The twins, still children at heart, felt the weight of grown decisions. In private, Marnie would sketch birds and Delia would sit quietly, knuckles white. Their diaries, later, recovered, showed lines that read less like claims of wonder than pleas for rest. One September evening, a fever swept the sleep quarters. A barn fire was narrowly averted, and the twins rushed into the chaos to comfort frightened animals. The next day, a prominent townsman awoke cured of a stubborn cough, yet Delia failed to rise from her bed. She slept and did not wake for hours. When she did open her eyes, something in her voice had changed, thin and remote. The town's hope hardened into dread. Years later, a ledger turned up in an attic, Jacob Cain's small book. Simple entries of dates, names, and the odd tally of cures. Beside them, in a thicker hand, Marnie's notebooks held an image, a drawing of two small hands joined on a line. "We give back," the phrasing haunted scholars. Was there a trade? A seeming exchange of vitality? Or a psychosocial dynamic the researchers did not understand? Medical men offered theories: contagious placebo, psychosomatic contagion, or an unnoticed environmental factor. One theory suggested a neurological coupling, something like mirror neurons writ large and potent. Another suggested rare twin physiology, shared circulation, anomalies causing visible cross effects. Each test explained some small piece and left a larger hole where narrative should be. Science could catalog results, but not the meaning that townsfolk insisted upon. Families chose sides. Some lost marriage prospects. Some gained influence. The twins became a mirror for the community's choices, what the town would sacrifice for hope. An attempt at exploitation by an enterprising showman nearly drew them away. A public performance panicked the twins. Marnie's drawing hand trembled and Delia fainted. Those incidents made exploitation morally and practically dangerous. Phone winter. Possibility ended not with a verdict but with disappearance. After a heated town council meeting, during which arguments about regulation and charity collided, the twins' home door stayed closed. The next morning the bed was empty. No track led away from the yard through fresh snow. Some thought they had been taken. Some believed they had left by their own will. Years later, the cellar door would creak, but the girls were gone. Decades passed. A later excavation under the old house found curious traces: shells of herbs, a small glass file carved initials on a beam. Nothing proved a miracle. Nothing proved a crime. DNA could not be recovered from the remnants of twine and textile. What remained were testimonies, a midwife's note, a physician's redacted report, a child's drawing of two hands linked in light. In recent years, historians, physicians, and social scientists revisited Pine Hollow's record. They read the ledger with modern eyes and suggested more modest conclusions. A potent social placebo, rare twin physiology, communal narratives that amplified coincidences, yet they also acknowledged a stubborn residue of wonder, an element of human experience that measurement alone could not swallow. Perhaps the central question is ethical, not exotic. If a person's gift helps others but injures them, what does society owe in return? Pine Hollow gave symphonies of thanks and fragments of charity. It did not build institutions to protect the giver. The twins' story becomes an instruction for our time about care networks and the dangers of privatizing risk into individuals. The Twin Enigma resists the neatness we prefer. Stories shift with retelling. One neighbor's miracle is another's forgery. One scientist's notes are another's secret. The proper response may be humility, to accept that some events sit at the margins of what we can explain. The old house still stands in parts. Its beams have initials like scars. People still leave small tokens on the threshold. So what are we to take from Pine Hollow and the twins? Not a claim that science failed nor that miracles rule. Rather, a story about how communities absorb phenomena by superstition, by study, by silence, and how they treat those who stand between necessity and care. Delia and Marnie's fate does not hand us a final answer. It leaves us a demand that we build systems to protect both the helped and the helper, and that we hold a place in history for the unexplained without exploiting it.